Hey, hello everyone. Today's game comes from 2008, the Dresden Olympiad in Germany. With the white pieces, we have Polish number one player Radoslaw Wojtaszek. Just a little bit about him. He's a second for Anand in two of his title um, defenses. And he's married to women's GM Alina Kashlinskaya. And his highest rating it was 2744, and he was ranked highest number 14 in the world. He was Polish champion several times, uh, and he's only 33 years old as of today. So he had I'm sorry, he had the black pieces. I apologize. He had the black pieces. Now, the player with the white pieces was born in Split, Croatia. And his name is Dusko Pavasovic, and he is a little bit lesser known. Although he was born in Croatia, he plays for Slovenia, and he's been a GM since '99. He's 43 years old, and he's a FIDE trainer since 2012. So why am I showing you this particular game? Well, it's a very um, nice opening, and it's also a good demonstration of how simple chess wins. You don't need fireworks over the board all the time and sacrifices uh, and real complicated positions to win, even at a grandmaster level. All right, so let's get into it. Game started out e4. Again, Pavasovic was rated 2597 and has the white pieces here. And Radoslav Wojtaszek had the black pieces. It was rated 2600 at the time. So we have a Sicilian on the board. Wojtaszek, c3. This is known commonly as the Alapin Sicilian. And the idea is very simple. And it's akin to the ideas we see in the Gioco Piano, Rui Lopez, and such classical openings where white wants to just simply build up a classical two-pawn center here. All right, so the idea is obviously when d4 is played and black trades off on d4 with the c pawn, as in your open Sicilians, instead of white having a piece to put on put on d4, this pawn will be replaced with the c pawn. All right, so it's a good and healthy idea, and of course lines are open also for the queen. And this is an idea again that we see in other openings, right? Ponziani opening, etc. All right. As with anything in chess, there's always a downside to it. So what's the downside of this move? Well, first you can see it blocks the knight on b1 from going to its natural square. All right, the knight is you know wants to go there. That's the best square in the opening for the knight. c3 and f3. All right. The second thing is that, of course, conversely, not conversely, but additionally, c3 doesn't add to white's development at all. All right, it's just another pawn move in the opening. And d5 is played. And the fact that c3 is blocking this knight from coming out, this gives black the incentive to play a move like d5 because now, after e takes d5, as happened in the game, queen takes d5 can be played, and black, at least for the time being, does not have to worry about losing time moving his queen after knight c3. All right, so the game continued. d4, knight f6, knight f3, bishop g4, bishop e2, e6. This is all mainline stuff. Theory, castles, knight c6, h3, and now bishop h5, bishop e3, Other alternatives for white are knight a3 here, and also c4 common. It's common alternative, and then bring in the knight here. Bishop e3. C takes d4 now, and knight d4 by Pavasovic. Another alternative is c takes d4, again with the same idea of bringing the knight here and playing with this isolated pawn structure. All right, it depends on your style of play and what type of positions you prefer. Here, Pavasovic prefers to keep things a little bit more solid, perhaps playing such a strong player, or who knows what the score was. This is an important game in the Olympiad, so perhaps he didn't want to take too many chances. All right, so he gets a nominal advantage here in that he has the 3-2 advantage with the pawn structure on the queen side. Some more exchanges take place. Bishop takes e2, queen takes e2, and now bishop e7. What I want to say before I go any further, if you're interested in the Alapin variation of the Sicilian, Pavasovic is a good player to study. He has tons of games in this variation. This is like one of his specialties against the Sicilian. He rarely plays open Sicilians and such like that. He's a specialist in this particular opening, and I am a big advocate of finding a guru in chess or someone to follow. All right, that way you can see what they are playing against other grandmasters and basically incorporate their repertoire. So if you're looking for a role model to play to learn how to play this opening, is Pavasovic is a great player to follow. He has a lot of games against grandmasters and a lot of victories, and good, strong victories too, where he's runs them over. All right, he's really prepares himself in these lines. He really knows his theory here. Game continued on. Rook d1, castles, and now we see c4. So you can see these ideas showing up at different times, and you notice too that eventually white does gain time against the queen. This is why many times in the opening you will not see d5, although it's available. You might see a move like e6 first and then d5, for example, with the idea to capture the pawn with the e pawn. But this is a perfectly known a position known for equality. So it's just a matter of preference. So knight takes d4, little tactics here. Bishop takes d4, queen e4, and we can see the rush right into the end game. Queen takes e4, knight takes e4, right, and you figure handshake is coming soon because the position is perfectly equal. Knight d2, my Pavasovic. And here, I believe that Radoslaw starts to make some mistakes in the position. Here he plays the move knight takes d2. And this allows white to start to dominate on the d file, which seems insignificant. When you start placing these little advantages together, the position can become very difficult for black. So I think better is knight d6, and I think this has been shown in grandmaster practice. Knight d6 or knight f6, which doesn't allow white to immediately dominate the d file. A good example of this can be seen in the game Stevic versus Sulana, two grandmasters, 2,600 players, where in the same position, knight d6 is played with the attack here, or pressure here on this pawn at least. See, the knight can't move right now. B3 was played, rook FD8, knight F3, knight F5, bishop C3, and F6. And after that, the game was drawn. So it's hard to see where white could really find an advantage worth playing for in that position. Now, note the contrast between what I just showed you and what happens in the game here. So, Radoslaw plays knight takes d2, rook takes d2, so you can already see that white is already in position to dominate the file immediately. Rook fd8, and of course, Wojtaszek saw this, but figured it probably wasn't a big deal here, as he has the bishop on e7, keeping an eye here, and the trades would just be inevitable. However, the problem is that this bishop is well placed in the center and puts pressure on this pawn. So before he can really allow this exchange of rooks, he has to think about what he's going to do with the pawns on the queen side. So Radoslaw throws this move in here, bishop b4, which to me is kind of like a waste of time because it doesn't break the coordination of the rooks. If one of the rooks had to say move off the d file, then you can say that move is good. But he just simply moves up, and we can argue to a better position because now, right, the rook has more scope. Radoslaw simply moves his bishop back, and now bishop e3. Notice Pavasovic is keeping an eye on this pawn. All right, and so he's threatening this capture here. And the problem now that black has to deal with is either he's going to drop this a pawn after an exchange, or he has to deal with the rook penetration to the 7th. So for example, let's say rook takes, rook here. You can see the obvious loss of material. Okay. So if rook takes, and let's say he takes some time to defend the pawn first. Now you can see that black has some difficulties in the position here. Okay, with these pawns, rook and bishop are well coordinated here, putting pressure on the queen side. So after bishop e3, a6 was played by Radoslaw. Now I think that b6 is better, although it breaks the old rule. It's not really a rule, but it's like a rule of thumb. So we could say, yeah, we'll say rule of thumb as opposed to, say, like a strong law in chess. But usually you want to put your pawns on the opposite color of your bishop. All right. And that gives a bishop more scope. But sometimes when you're defending, you do want to put them on the same color. All right. And I think that's the best scenario here because white is a little bit better. All right. And I think that black needs to be thinking more defensively. And I think in this scenario that b6 is the move right here, and then trade off these rooks. In the actual game, after rook d3, bishop e7, bishop e3, a6 was played. And of course, this guarantees that the pawns will not be attacked by the dark square bishop, but it gives away this beautiful square on b6, which was taken by Pavasovic immediately. I'm sure that his eyes became wide open after he seen a6 as the b6 square is just begging to be occupied by this bishop. Radoslaw played rook takes d3, rook takes d3, and now he played king f8. And you can see again the slight advantages, right? Very simple, right? What are the advantages here? Well, you have this 3-2 majority on the king side. Bishop is well placed. Notice that all of white's pieces are just better than black's pieces, right? White's bishop is better than black's. White's rook is better, right? He has control of the d file. Okay, and now he's about to swing his rook to the 7th rank. All right, all of these little advantages start piling up. Rook d7, and the position is very simple otherwise. Nothing complicated. Rook b8. So we can see again this rook being forced into passivity, right? That's a bad rook right there when it has to just sit there and defend like that. That's not rooks. That's not what rooks are made for, right? That's like buying a real expensive race car like a Ferrari or Lamborghini, right? And then just driving around in local traffic. You're just not really using that car like it's supposed to, right? It's not being used to its potential. Okay? And that's the problem with this rook here. Pavasovic plays the move bishop a7, where he's going to force the win of this b pawn. Rook d8, and rook takes b7. Radoslaw had the right idea in mind, is sometimes you have to just play for activity, all right? It's better to be active and down a pawn, right, than try to hold on to the material and then slowly get squeezed and crushed. And you'll lose the material, no doubt, in the end anyway. As you can see right here, after bishop a7, the rook was pretty much forced. So he goes and tries to become as active as possible. But now he's down 2 pawns. Rook d1. And now white's job here is simply just to consolidate the position. Okay, he's already up 2 pawns. Now, basically, he has to make sure that white doesn't get overly active. Black gets overly active. This is his only chance. King h2, bishop d6 check. And we can see, of course, after white gained that pawn, black was able to get a little active here. But is it enough? Of course not. So g3 was played. Rook d2. Notice everything is protected because white's pieces are still good. Bishop e3, rook c2, c5, nice move. And these are the type of things that you benefit from when you have the superior position, as the tactics always work in your favor. Here, the move bishop takes c5 cannot be played on account of rook to c7, which will be losing immediately for black. I mean, black will have to play a move like rook f2 here, but that's losing the exchange. Okay, so this is why after c5, bishop e5 was played again. Black has to rely on activity. b4, rook takes a2, so white gives back the pawn. Right, he gives back one of the pawns. He gives up 2 pawns. He gives back one of them. Excuse me. He gives back the pawn. I'm sorry, I miscounted there. Because the material is even, but white has his killer pass pawn here, and he has his rook on the 7th rank. c6, rook c2. Bishop c5, blocking the rook out, and I like the coordination of the white pieces. King e8. So Radoslaw desperately tries to get his king over. Rook a7 and king d8, and this is a great play here by white. He attacks this pawn right here, and the idea is if he goes to attack this pawn right here, that it's going to be mate in short order, because if you can see, white's pieces are very well coordinated, and he's just simply threatening not only this pawn here on a6, but he's threatening rook a8. And how does black defend? Black would just have to give up his bishop, and of course that's going to lead uh, to checkmate, as you can see here. And this is what I'm talking about, the coordination and harmony of the white pieces. This is why my friends in the game, Wojtaszek did not try to defend this pawn. Instead, he played king d8, trying to get the king closer in the position. All right. Bishop b6, check. All right, there's no rush in this position, right? None of this pawn grabbing stuff. It's playable, but I like the technique that Pavasovic uses. He just squeezes the life from Wojtaszek in the position. So bishop b6 check is played. King e8, and what this does is basically create like a similar position to what we had before, where there was the mating net, where this pawn was attacked and black's king is kind of far away from the action and has to worry about potential mating threats. Rook a8 check was played. King e7. Bishop c5. This checks and protects the pawn here. King f6. And then just simply rook takes a6, and Wojtaszek resigned 2 pawns down in the position. So that was a nice, simple game in the Alapin Sicilian by Pavasovic. What can we take in from that in conclusion? We definitely can take the idea from it that simple chess wins. You don't always have to play aggressive, hostile chess against your opponent. You can see that white had a very simple position, right? You can't say that he was necessarily winning or had any kind of big advantage. All it took was a simple series of errors by black here. The very strong grandmaster, and he lost, right, in a very innocuous, drawish, if I might say, looking position. So what were the mistakes that black made? Well, definitely I believe exchanging the knights. Like I showed you the variation where he could have played knight d6, or the game where knight d6 was played in the same line. Also knight f6. Just not giving up the d file so easily. The other move I believe was just bishop b4 and then back to bishop e7 again. That move was kind of unnecessary in the position, and it allowed white the time he needed to implement his plan of penetrating on the d file up to the 7th rank. And we saw the how dangerous, right, a simple looking position can get. So I hope you enjoyed that game. Please donate to my channel in the links below. These videos have been helpful to you. There also will be DVDs related to this specific opening. If you're interested, just click on those links. It'll take you to where you can get those DVDs just related to this specific opening, the Alapin Sicilian, if you're interested in that. I also want to let everyone know that I am on Live Chess. The same name is my YouTube channel, ChessAudiobooks. I specialize in just playing minute games. I don't have a lot of time to play long games or even worry about people using the computer and stuff like that. So I like to play 1-minute games. So if you want some of this smoke, come get it. And I'm on Live Chess, and also Also, yes, on Twitter. Also, same name, ChessAudiobooks. So follow me there. And again, please comment below, like, subscribe, all that stuff. It helps move the video up in the algorithms on YouTube. All right. I'll see you guys soon. I hope you enjoyed this video.